let's move into a team that, they've got some playoff experience. They've got some playoff experience early with guys like Joe Burrow, obviously going to the Super Bowl a couple years back, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. Kind of talking about how the Steelers, they kind of coast at this 10-7 every year, 10-6, 9-8. The Bengals finished 9-8 last year and were a game out of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, finishing 9-8 almost and missing the playoffs almost feels worse than, finishing like 6-11, right? Because it gets you so close. And especially in a league where, you can finish 9-8 and miss the playoffs, but then someone else in another division could finish, 8-9 and make the playoffs as a division champ, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredibly frustrating to have a winning record and not come away with a playoff run out of that. So for you, where do you feel like the Chiefs were, maybe just a couple – or sorry, not the Chiefs. Where do you feel like the Bengals were just a couple inches away from the playoffs last year?
I don't think they're a couple of inches away. I think they're a couple yards and a couple miles away when it comes to this defense. And in the notes, I put, holy hell, this offense is going to be so good.
Yeah.
And the notes were, holy hell, this defense is going to be so bad, right? Like, this defense is the Achilles heel of this team and pretty much has been since Joe Burrow's been in the league, right? And we'll start with the offense. Like, over the course of the entire year, they were 7th in EPA per play, 6th in EPA per dropback, and 19th EPA per rush. And then weeks 1 through 8, overall they were good. Pass offense was good. EPA per rush was bad. They were bottom 8 in the league. They were 7th worst. And then from week 9 to week 18, they improved to 11th best in the run game and moved up to 5th overall as an offense. So offensively, they even transformed midway through the year. A lot of that kind of has to do with Chase Brown. Like, if you look at his efficiency numbers as a rusher and as a receiver, they aren't great, but it's the 1 + 1 is 3 effect. He's good enough at rushing and good enough at receiving that you get a great running back in how this offense is used. And they're going to leverage him coming into this year, right? Like, this offense just opened up and they used him more. And the stats don't explain it because he was technically less efficient as a rusher and slightly more efficient as a receiver. But the matchups they got with him out of the backfield compared to what they had with Zach Moss, just linebackers had to creep down much faster than they were, which opened spaces behind them for Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Mike Gesicki came alive in the second half of the season. Like, he really opened up this offense in a way this offense hasn't been open from a running back since Joe Mixon was there, right? I know Joe Mixon's only a year moved, but even the last season Joe Mixon was with the Bengals was not a good year for him, right, in terms of his career. But the biggest thing I want to point out is points per game. They, from weeks 1 through 8, they were 24.83 points per game scored. From weeks 9 to 17, they were 32.25 points per game scored. Like, they went up over a touchdown's worth and an extra point's worth, almost 2-point plays worth, when they put in Chase Brown. And, like, he's not the end-all be-all, but he was a huge factor in that offense opening up. Like, that's what makes Chase Brown good, is how much he opens up this offense and allows the offense to operate in a way that they haven't really operated in a couple of years. And flipping over to the defense, the Bengals were 4-4 games where they scored at least 28 points. They averaged 27.76 points per game. Right. So going 4-4 where you score 28 points per game, that's an indictment on your defense, because there are teams that don't even average 23 points per game and they go 11-6 or 12-5. Right.
You should be like 6-2 minimum in a stretch like that.
Exactly. Like, yeah, they had a couple shootouts, well, like with the Ravens specifically, but like to have a shootout every game and say, hey, Joe Burrow, can you throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns and we might give you a chance to win? Like, that's just blasphemous for football, right? Like, as a defensive guy, that pisses me off. So just to kind of give some highlights on what made this defense as bad as they were. They were 6th highest in EPA per play allowed and 5th highest in EPA per rush allowed. They were really bad on defense, especially against the run. So teams milk the clock and force Joe Burrow to have the ball less than what he normally does. And with that, they allowed the 2nd highest rush success rate in the NFL. If we look at those last 5 weeks of the season, though, this defense looked night and day. Like, they figured it out somehow in the last 5 weeks when they went 5-0. They had the 7th lowest EPA per play allowed and the 5th lowest EPA per dropback allowed. And they went from the 2nd worst rush defense to middle of the road at 17th. Like, something changed in this defense, and they didn't really change anything. Like, I think they just kind of figured out how to play together. I think Trey Hendrickson was getting some good matchups that Trey Hendrickson's a great rusher, and he has been for the past 3 years. But I think at the end of last year, he really came unglued because they were trying to make a push. And so he was just playing out of his mind. And I think that kind of helped all that come together. Logan Wilson stopped being a pumpkin in coverage, which was nice. But other than that, they didn't really change how their play calling was. They ran a lot of what we call fire zone, is basically a 5-man or 6-man blitz, and you put people in zone behind it. When we talk about fire zone coverages, right, there's a couple different ways. So there's fire zone 3, which is 3 high and 3 middle. And then there's fire zone 2, which is 2 safeties over the top or 2 defenders over the top and 4 underneath. Those are the most common fire zone calls. The Bengals ran fire zone 4, where they put 4 defenders over the top, and then based on the offensive strength and leverage, they would move the 2 guys underneath and be like, okay, find the pockets, and when you find them, we're bringing our guys downhill to stop it. And I think they ran that more in those 5 games, and that kind of threw a curveball at some of these teams. And they were just good at that. Like, it was just really cool to see that shift in play calling. Like, Lou Anarumo does that a lot compared to other guys in the league, like Brian Flores level type blitz and fire zone blitzes. But he ran that 4-shell fire zone more than anyone else, especially in those last 5 weeks. And I think that's kind of what unlocked it. Unfortunately for the Bengals, they're losing a lot of solid foundational defensive pieces. Sam Hubbard, who was the Robin to Trey's Batman, retired. So that's not that he was a good edge. He was above average, but still like a NFL starting edge. He's gone. Jermaine Pratt, who's been in that linebacker core for several years, he's gone, and he played a shit ton of snaps for them. Mike Hilton, who's a really good slot corner, he's gone. He's in Miami. Akeem Davis-Gaither was kind of a zone nickel dime linebacker that they like to put in. He's gone. Von Bell, who was in the back end of that safety group, he's gone. And obviously Lou, as DC, is gone. And Lou's like, I know the defense was bad, but that was not on Lou. Like, Lou was a good defensive coordinator in this league. It's just he didn't have the pieces. And that's a lot of what's been happening with this front office and Joe Burrow advocating for his guys, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you're building a team. You're not building an offense. Like, the past 2 receiver classes have been absolutely loaded. You could have found someone to replace T. Higgins and then used the money from T. Higgins and added 4 or 5 more defensive pieces and probably would have signed Trey Hendrickson to a massive contract. And this defense is probably middle of the pack, which is all Joe Burrow needs. But Joe Burrow likes his guys, which there's no problem with that in a vacuum. But when it comes to contract negotiations and you have a poor cash flow team like the Bengals, because their owner is one of the poorest in the NFL, it's tough to have everything you want like some of these other players are having happen for them.
Absolutely. For you, year 6 for Joe Burrow, right? Last season, statistically, probably his best, right? Yeah. He was 82 yards short of 5,000. You talk about Joe Burrow liking to play with his guys. It's kind of hard. I think most teams would like to play with guys that the quarterback can win with rather than guys that the quarterback likes, although that's important. For you, is there anything that you want to see Joe Burrow work on this season?
I think the biggest thing for him is going to be you advocated for these guys. Like we know Jamar Chase is probably going to lead the NFL in receiving or at least be top 3. Like, utilize T. Higgins a lot. Utilize Mike Gesicki a lot. Like, use Chase Brown out of the backfield a lot. Like, you better lead the league in passing again. Like, you better have a historic year as far as quarterback play is concerned. If you do all this advocating and all this pushing, you better do something with it. So it's not so much what Joe Burrow has to do differently. It's what he has to do. Like, you can't say, oh, I want this guy, I want this guy. Like, I don't care about my offensive line, I'm going to mitigate it, and then not foot the bill, which he's foot the bill his entire career since he's been in Cincinnati and has kind of shushed the haters up from the pre-LSU days, right? Like, he's proven he's a top 5 quarterback in this league. Firmly, he's number 4 for me, and he's number 4 for a lot of people. He's a damn good quarterback. But if you're doing all this advocating, at some point the defensive struggles and the offensive line struggles can't matter if you're going to do this much pushing for your guys. So, and not that he complains about it, because he doesn't, but when you look at a game like we saw with the Commanders where he's trying to scramble around in a preseason game and make something happen, you can't be doing that if you want to stay healthy and you want to give your guys a chance. You have to make smart, sound decision making. And I feel like he's going to try to play hero ball because that's what he had to do last year. And we might see a drop off in his production from a box score statistical standpoint. And even in his play, like, when you feel like you have to play hero ball, no quarterback plays better than they do when they don't feel like they have to play hero ball.
Absolutely. And let's get into the dark horse offensive tackle, Amarius Mims.
Mm-hmm.
What do you like out of this guy? And how do you feel like he'll, he's one of the best guys to be protecting a guy like Joe Burrow, even when he has to play hero ball?
Yeah, this guy's an athletic freak. He's over 6'5", over 340 pounds, but moves like he's 300. Really good feet, really strong hands, and looks fit for his size. I just like him as a developmental piece. I think he did better down the stretch of last season, especially when we talk about pass pro. He struggled most of his rookie year. He'd been battling injuries. That's the most snap he's played in any season of his football career. I think he played 800 total snaps in 3 years of college. Like, that sucks, but he just wasn't healthy. Got healthy last year and played a full season against some of the best edge rushers in the NFL. I mean, the AFC North is loaded with them. Myles Garrett, TJ Watt. You have the Ravens tandem of constantly rotating guys. Like, that's tough. And then you look at the rest of their schedule, like, played against a lot of good edge rushers. But during the last third of the season, he improved. He allowed just 7 pressures from week 13 to week 17. So a 5-game span. He didn't play week 18. And a 4.17 pressure rate allowed. That's pretty decent for an offensive tackle. And he ranks 16th out of 58 offensive tackles in true pass block grade in that same span at 74.8. So, again, we have a small sample size to work with, but I like the athleticism. I like the build. Now that he's got some snaps under his belt, I think we're going to see a good year 2 from him. And that's why he's my dark horse, because everyone's kind of writing off the Bengals O-line. He's someone who I think is going to be a bright spot and is going to be an anchor on that offensive line for the next several years.
Finally, the big question for the Bengals. If the defense continues to struggle, can enough hero ball and enough, excellent play from the offense be enough to keep the Bengals and put them back in the playoffs and maybe be better than 9-8?
I don't think it can, because we saw Joe Burrow at his best, especially in those last 5 weeks, and that still wasn't enough. And it's just how loaded the AFC is. And it's, if this defense plays the exact same as it did this year as it did last year, I don't know what more Joe Burrow can do to elevate. Like, he has to play perfect. And sorry, no quarterback is playing perfect. The closest we saw was Lamar Jackson last year, right? Like, and Aaron Rodgers probably in 2014, right? Like, one of the most efficient quarterback seasons we've ever seen. And even he wasn't perfect, right? And not that Joe Burrow can't play at that level. He has not played at a super efficient, perfect accuracy level like those two did in those 2 seasons, right? So that's what it's going to have to take. I don't know if he has that in his arsenal. Like, he's a very good tight window thrower, can put the ball all over the field, but he will put the ball in harm's way more than all the other superstar stud quarterbacks that we have in the league and have had in the league, like over the past 10 years, right? So to put it bluntly, no, this defense has to step up because this offense is going to regress. Like, that was a really, really damn good offense last year, and they're losing some star power in some positions, even on the offensive side. So it's kind of wait and see, but I would say no from outside looking into the season.